This wiring harness doesn't look secure. We need to reroute it before the cowling goes on.
The factory wakes up on steel wheels. A steam locomotive drags its weight along the siding, brakes screaming as it grinds to a halt beside the brick walls. Coal smoke dissolves into morning fog, drifting through dirty warehouse windows. Inside the boxcars, weight, metal, potential. Chains move first, low to the floor. Heavy links drop from an overhead crane and bite into huge coils of tired yellow brass. Grease-blackened gloves guide the hooks. Dust dances in the light. Nearby, a worker levers a crate of cold steel into line with a rusted crowbar, boots slipping on oil-stained concrete. Brass and steel, anonymous, inert, are about to be given purpose. The brass goes under the press. A shining strip feeds between iron rollers slick with pale grease into the throat of a blanking press that hums with tension. Then the punch descends, fast, violent, precise. Perfect discs rip free in a rhythm of impact and vibration. Brass dust jumps, oil shivers with each blow, and the flat strip becomes a skeleton of holes. From there, the metal becomes a waterfall. Thousands of fresh discs roar down a chute into a bin, a metallic cascade so loud it shakes the frame. In a dim corner, a worker shovels chunks of animal tallow into a tumbler full of brass, white fat slapping wetly onto shining discs. Grease, heat, and pressure prepare the metal for what comes next. Inside the cupping press, geometry changes. Viewed from within, a ram slams a disc through a die, turning a flat circle into a shallow cup in a single brutal stroke. Lubricant sprays, heat shimmers, and the metal leaves the machine no longer a disc, not yet a casing. On a worn conveyor belt, rows of hot, greasy cups march into the gloom, steam rising from their surfaces. One fills the frame under inspection light. Stressed grain, micro cracks, oil film, a single fingerprint smudged across raw brass. Scale replaces intimacy. The camera pulls back to reveal a forest of vertical presses, all driven by overhead leather belts and spinning line shafts. Cast iron frames shudder. Flywheels blur. The floor glistens with oil and sawdust. In this noise, the cups harden, stiffen, work themselves into a state that must be undone. Fire does the resetting. A forklift drops a crate of cups beside the annealing furnace. They tumble onto a woven metal belt and crawl toward an orange glow. Heat waves bend the air. Gas burners roar behind soot-stained brick. Inside, the brass turns cherry red as its crystal structure relaxes. Then, the quench. Glowing cups dumped into hot water, steam exploding upward, camera lens fogging in an instant. The metal emerges discolored, scaled, scarred. It falls into acid, where bubbling liquid and bitter fumes eat away oxidation. Rotating drums rinse it all off with boiling water and tumbling media. Soapy foam spilling over wet concrete. When a single cup slides under the first draw press, it's ready. The cup becomes a casing. A long punch forces it through a narrower die, stretching brass into a taller, thinner tube. Lubricant foams, metal flows. A second draw makes it longer, walls thinner still. Between stages, spinning cutters trim ragged mouths, brass shavings spraying into the air in bright arcs. Overhead, belts and shafts spin in hypnotic motion, dust and cobwebs swirling in rafters blackened by oil and time. At the base, identity is struck in. A die hits the casing with crushing force, bunting the base flat, forming the rim and primer pocket in a single impact. A moment later, harsh light reveals fresh head stamps, date, maker, caliber. The casing now belongs to a specific place, a specific year. Grooves are cut, features machined, and soon bins fill with golden cylinders waiting in still warehouse air, stacked in wooden boxes and catching light like quiet piles of intention. Across the floor, another transformation, steel into projectiles. Hexagonal bars slide into multi-spindle screw machines, disappearing into noisy, oily jaws. Carbide tools bite and carve ogive shapes from the spinning steel. Showers of blue-hot chips flinging away. Dark sulfur cutting oil pours over everything, hissing as it cools the interface. Below, tangled swarf piles up like steel wool in greasy bins. For larger shells, knurling wheels grind crosshatch grooves into the steel. Soft copper rings are pressed into those grooves, then machined to exact diameter, copper ribbons peeling away in tight curls. Some rounds receive dense tungsten cores, thudding into place within hollow jackets. Finished steel projectiles hang in racks on overhead monorails, swaying through a painting booth where olive drab spray coats them in uniform green. Then, the small but critical heart, the primer. Behind blast doors and warning signs, in a clean, tense room, tiny brass cups are filled with wet, glistening explosive paste. Foiling paper discs settle over the mixture. Microscopic anvils are pressed into place. Trays of primers dry in warm closets, then tumble gently to remove loose dust. Later, each primer presses into the base of a brass case with a firm, exact click. A ring of red lacquer circles the primer, drawn by a hollow needle. The varnish glows wet, then creeps into the annulus by capillary action, sealing the joint. The operator stays behind scratched safety glass, face distorted by thick plastic and reflections of factory lights. Quality begins with something as simple as touch. A worker's thumb moves across rows of cartridge bases, searching for primers sitting too high. Rejects fall into a shadowed bin, damaged brass, misseeded primers, small failures gathered in the dark. The good cases move on, mouths open, ready. The powder room is quiet and wired to the earth. Copper tools, anti-static floors, grounded machines. Cordite-like grains pour into a hopper, dry and yellowish brown. A measured charge falls into each case. A sensor rod dips into mouths to verify the level. Random samples spill onto precision scales, needles trembling before settling. Stray grains vanish into vacuum nozzles. A chart recorder slowly tracks humidity in red ink. Thick braided straps fasten machines to the ground. Inside each case, powder lies in a dark heap. The indexing table turns, carrying charged cases smoothly to the next station. Through a doorway, the sound swells again, back into the mechanical storm of the assembly hall. Here, it all comes together. Mechanical fingers place bullets onto case mouths with delicate precision. Seating rams descend, pressing them to exact depth. Crimp dies squeeze the brass into bullet grooves, brass curling into knurled cannelures and locking metal to metal. Finished rounds fall into canvas chutes in soft, steady streams. Some tips dip into red paint, some into glossy black. Marking tracer or armor-piercing futures. Under the machines, oil, dust, and rags lie tangled in the shadows. On a bench, a worker braces around against wood and pushes hard, testing crimp strength with raw muscle. Pass. Macro shots linger on the crimp detail, brass biting firmly into etched grooves. In quality control, the roar dims again. Women sit in rows at long tables, bright lamps washing their faces in pale light. Cartridges roll across tilted mirrors, reflections reveal wobble or perfection. Rounds drop into go gauges with a satisfying clunk or hang halfway, where a hand plucks them out and throws them into a red scrap bin. Dial indicators touch base plates, Needles flicking over watch-like faces, bandaged fingers handle round after round, worn skin and simple rings telling their own quiet story. Accepted rounds form ordered grids and counting trays, 50 by 50, pattern after pattern. Boxes are weighed to ensure no gaps hide in cardboard silence. Somewhere, a whistle shrieks. Inspectors stretch, shoulders cracking from hours of repetition. The ammunition moves to its final shell. Workers snap rounds into steel stripper clips or feed them into machine gun belts. Clips slide into khaki bandoliers, folded and strapped. Bandoliers and cartons sink into zinc-plated cans that ring hollow for a moment before they're packed full. Lids are soldered shut. Flux smokes as silver seams freeze in place. Small opening keys are welded or taped on, a future solution for a future user. 2 cans go into a rough pine crate. Nails bite into wood with heavy hammer blows. Black stencil ink spells out caliber, type, lot number across pale grain. Crates stack higher on the loading dock, catching daylight that slices in through an open bay door. Hand trucks squeal as workers heave crates into the waiting boxcar. Shadows and sunlight trade places across faces and wood. Finally, the heavy iron door slams shut, latch snapping forward, dust drifting down from the frame. Outside, the locomotive pulls again. Wheels grip, slip, then catch. Steam erupts. The train edges away, dragging boxcars full of ammunition out of the frame. The factory shrinks behind it, brick, smoke, glass, until it's just part of the background against a sky crossed by a dark smoke trail. In this place, the story is relentless and simple. Metal arrives as anonymous mass. It passes through fire, oil, pressure, chemistry, and human hands. It leaves as precise intent, sealed in wood and steel, rolling away on rails toward a future the factory will never see.